Welcome. I'm your host, Julie Poole, a law of attraction coach, hypnotherapist, and spiritual teacher. This show is for anyone interested in living their best life on all levels, mind, body, and soul. My aim is to uplift, inform, and inspire you. So let's chat and move you from hoping to having. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Oh, my goodness me. In today's podcast, I am so blessed and honored to have the amazing Mr. Neale Donald Walsch as our guest to talk about his new book, The God's Solution, and just be here. It's wonderful. Welcome, Neale. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. You're very kind in those sweet words, and it's my privilege and my pleasure to be here with you. How can I serve you?
I would love to ask you about your latest book, The God's Solution, which I've just finished reading. Thank you. It was a lovely, beautiful book. Tell us a little bit about The God's Solution. And you've got another book in the offing as well. You've got a new theology that you're working on at the moment as well, aren't you? But we want to talk about this one today.
Yes. Well, what caused me to write that book, Julie, because, I've written already 39 books, so it's not like I felt the need, to add to the material. But what I did feel, gosh, maybe there's something that could be said to the world at large, to anyone who wants to pick up the book and read it, that could help us to solve the major problems in the world today. And what I think is the biggest problem in the world today? I've asked a lot of people, what do they think is the biggest problem in the world today? And they tell me, well, the environment or the ecology, or the economy, or, the political situation, the war in this country or that country. I tell them, actually, it's none of that. Then they look at me like, well, then what is the biggest problem in the world today? And I tell them, in my observation, the biggest problem in the world today is alienation. We are alienated from each other. Surely years ago, when I was a young man, we wanted to work together to solve our problems. So it's not like we didn't have any problems, but the biggest problem was not each other. The biggest problem was, what was out there in front of us, and we tried to stand together and work together to create our solutions. But these days, we're making the other person the problem. If the other person is different from us in any way, Julie, if they have a difference of political opinion, if they have a different sexual orientation, if they have a different religion, if they have a different skin color, if they have a different economic status, whatever makes them different from us, they're the problem suddenly. And we start pointing fingers and actually calling names, cruel playground names that we used to use when we were kids on the playground to be mean to each other. Now world leaders are using such phrases and such statements about each other. So the biggest problem in the world today is alienation, because if we can eliminate alienation, we can then, of course, work together to solve the problems that we're facing.
Yeah, to come away from the separation and be in the oneness, which we all are. We are all souls. We are all God divinity personified, and we are all in this together, and we want to be able to support each other and work through, the issues together.
So that's why I wrote the God's Solution.
Yeah,
because I wanted to put, a simple solution in front of humanity. And what I'm suggesting, it's kind of a daring suggestion, frankly, if I do say so, but I've been saying in the book, maybe the solution is to come up with a brand new definition of God. Now, people might say, what does that have to do with what we were just talking about? And I say to them, well, you know what? Here's the deal. Most of the world's religions, and of course, there are over 4,200 religions in the world right now. I didn't make that number up. You can Google that number. How many religions are there on Earth right now? 4,223 or something like that in the world. And most of the religions teach us that our best undertaking in life would be to do our best to imitate God, to be God-like, if you please.
Yeah.
To try to follow God's rules, obey God's laws, do what God wants us to do, and act like, God would have us act. And so we're using God as our model of behavior. That's why the God solution is about God, not so much about us. It's about our definition of God, because we're using God's behavior as our model with regard to how to behave with each other. And most of us think, and most of the world's religions teach, that God is loving for sure, but that God is also judgmental, condemning, and punishing with, punishments that are not trivial, but everlasting damnation. Some religions call it Hades or hell. And, and so we're told that we are condemned to everlasting torture in the fires of hell if we disobey or do something that God does not like. And, I'm not making light of this, but let me give you an example. When I was 9 years old, a priest came to our Catholic school. I was raised as a Catholic, and he was teaching us about mortal sin. And he said, let me give you children, I'll give you an example of what a mortal sin is. A mortal sin is a sin that God will not forgive, by the way. If you die with a mortal sin on your soul, you go straight to hell, no questions asked. So, of course, we're all sitting there. I'm 9 years old. I'm a 9-year-old child. And we're all sitting there in fear. Oh, my gosh, well, what is a mortal sin? Can you give us some examples? He said, sure. I thought he was going to say murder, or stealing someone's life savings or whatever. He says, well, missing Mass on Sunday is a mortal sin. I said, wait a minute. I'm sorry, Father. If I miss church, I know I should be going to church, but if I miss church one Sunday in my life, and if I don't go to confession fast enough and have that absolution given to me by a priest, that I'm going to be sent to hell for everlasting damnation because I missed church one Sunday of my life? Yeah, and by the way, I'm not making this up. Folks, if you think I'm exaggerating, check Roman Catholic theology. That is taught to this very day.
I know, it's shocking, isn't it? I remember
so
when
people are, and the Catholic Church is not the only religion that is using fear to fill the temples, the churches, and to fill the synagogues with people. We have to use fear of God. Well, of course, now, here's how that relates to the biggest problem in the world today. If we think that this is how God behaves, we're going to behave the same way. Therefore, we will say that we love each other. We're loving people, we hope, but we also use judgment, condemnation, and punishment with each other. And it's going on every day all over the world. It's going on in Ukraine right now. They can't even agree on something as simple as where is the borderline between our two countries. Oh, well, we have a disagreement about the borderline. I got it. Let's kill about 3,000 people and see if we can't come to an agreement. Let's bomb churches and let's bomb schools. Let's bomb libraries and let's bomb the country into smithereens so that we can get them to agree on what we think is where the borderline should be. Are you kidding me? And this is how we behave with each other in many other areas of life as well. Yeah. So the God solution proposes that we redefine God, which would then allow us to redefine ourselves and our own behavior. And the God solution says that God can be defined in English in 2 words: pure love. Now, Julie, when I say this in front of an audience, someone in the back of the room is sure to get up and you'll say to me, oh, Neale, come on. I've been listening to you for 20 minutes. I thought you were going to bring us something revolutionary here. You've come here to tell me God is love. We all know that God is love. No one disagrees with that. Even though different religions have different doctrines, nobody disagrees that God is love. Of course, God is love. And I have to say to my friend in the back of the room, whoa, relax, slow down. I didn't say God is love. Yes, you did. I heard you just said it. I said, no. I said, God is pure love. Now, my friend in the back of the room will say, okay, what's the difference? The difference is that pure love needs nothing in return, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return, hopes for nothing in return. Pure love simply expresses love itself for the joy of it.
And it's
And
not
all that love
earned,
would
it's
give.
free. And that's the other thing,
And,
isn't it?
and you know what? That's how God loves us, which means that God is not, excuse me, folks, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but God is not judgmental, condemning, and punishing. And God will certainly not punish us with everlasting damnation for failing to go to church one Sunday morning. Come on. But this is the God we believe in, and this is the behavior we've adopted in our own life as well, because, hey, you know what? What's good enough for God is good enough for me. But that's what's causing the alienation on the planet. We feel justified in behaving the way we are behaving because we notice how we are told that God behaves with us. So the God solution is to change your idea about who and what God is, which would change necessarily your own idea about who and what you are. Imagine if we used pure love that needs, requests, demands, requires nothing in return. Imagine if we used that particular idea in everything that we do, politically, economically, socially, and spiritually between the peoples of this earth. Alienation would disappear overnight. And with it would go the alienating behaviors that produce wars and that stop us from solving the major problems that we have in the world today.
I love the way it's come into a sort of circle. I mean, I first read Conversations with God back in probably 2001, 2002. I'd had a beautiful relationship with God since I was a child. And I would go to church and they would do all the condemning stuff. And I'd sit there and go, no, that's not my God. You're not. And it kind of, I had my own relationship with God. And when I read your book, I remember at the end of that, I was in tears because it was so beautiful, the relationship between you and God, the freedom, the empowerment, the just everything about it. And I was teaching at that time spiritual development classes, and I just recommended reading this. Read this and read this and read these books by Neale Donald Walsch. It was my Bible. I must have read them over and over and over, and then most of your other books as well. That book for me was all about really understanding who God is, the God within, and your relationship with that God. Now to take it further, here we are sort of 25 years on to say, right, so if we redefine God and we take, we really understand, which to me was very strong conversations with God anyway. It's like God is love. He is not condemning. He, she, they are not condemning. That you're now pushing that further now in 2023 to say, let's just redefine it. If we take away the punishment and we take away the condemnation and we behave then as God ourselves, which of course we are, then we can move this world into a place of pure love and pure peace, which is what we all want.
Well, you've just described exactly what I'm saying in the book, and of course, I agree with every single word you just spoke.
Most of it from you. That's why you were my teacher. Conversations with God became my Bible. And I taught from it. I mean, everything I've taught out for 20 odd years has come from you. You are the inspiration. So when you say, look at God in a new way, I kind of go, I listen to what Neale Donald Walsch says. He knows what he's talking about. He's got it right. And let's feel into that, whether that resonates. And it certainly does for me. And I think it will for most of my followers and watchers. Because I teach the empowerment and the love that comes through and from God. I know in the holy experience, you say, for me, the difference between divinity and humanity is that divinity seeks only to distribute and humanity seeks only to gather. And I love that because that divinity to me is the definition of God. That really resonated for me, the distribution and the gathering. That really kind of made a big impact.
We should explain to people what she's talking about is the book called The Holy Experience, because it's not a widely known title. It didn't sell like 5 million copies. But in that book, I try to describe for people what it's like to have that holy experience of knowing, understanding, relating to, and having a friendship with God. Yeah. And yeah, it's true. And I love, frankly, I forgot that statement myself. I forgot that I wrote that, but that is a wonderful summation, that God seeks only to distribute and humans seek only to gather. But, and I can understand, basically, our cultures have been taught insufficiency. We've been taught there's not enough. So, of course, we have to gather. There's not enough food. There's not enough shelter. There's not enough of the good stuff of life to go around. There's never enough love. There's not enough sex. Of course, that's a given. And there's not enough of the other good things in life. So we have to gather. We're out there seeking. We're even seeking, there's not even enough wisdom in the world. We're seeking wisdom. So we are told that it's good to be a seeker. And what Conversations with God said to me was, actually, do not be a seeker. Be the source.
Yes.
Be the source of everything you wish you had more of in your life. Be the source of it in the life of another. For what you give to the other, you will receive, because what flows through you sticks to you. What a simple thought. What a simple idea.
Absolutely. There was another quote, I think, again, from the Holy Experience. Sorry, I know we're talking about the God Solution, but some of
No,
these,
it's okay. You can talk about anything you want to talk about. No, I don't care what we're talking about.
that there was a beautiful quote you said here. Therefore, do not look for your master, be the master for whom you have been looking. Do not seek the truth, be the truth that you have been seeking, and do not attempt to change another, be the change you wish to see. I love that. I had to put that in and say, I want to it resonates so much, because as you were saying, that we want to shift the blame and the responsibility onto everyone and everything else, including God, rather than take that ownership to actually be the master, to be the change, to be the truth, because everything is within us and it's inside that we need to seek rather than outside, and that the God within us will show us the way. And it's not a little man sitting on a cloud up there. It is an energy in all things, in everything. And I love the kind of, it's the within and the without. It's the no in the nothing. It's all. It's just beautiful. Everything about that just resonates to me so much.
Anyone who wants a copy, by the way, of the Holy Experience, but anyone who wants a copy, I will upload you an author's manuscript copy of that book for free. If you're a viewer or a listener to this program by Julie, that's all you have to say. I heard it. I heard you say it on Julie's program. Please send me a free copy, uploaded to my computer, of the Holy Experience.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. That's very generous offer.
Send me an email. And now the next question is, well, Neale, what is your email address?
And it would be going through your website, wouldn't it? NealeDonaldWalsch.com?
Yes, but the address, with my email address to send it to me would be, you're supposed to ask me.
What's your email address? I thought you would.
Strange you should ask. Okay, enough kidding around. The actual address is Neale@NealeDonaldWalsch.com. So Neale@NealeDonaldWalsch.com, and then say, hey, I'm a fan of Julie's program, and please send me that free copy of the Holy Experience. And I'll also send you a free copy of, by the way, of the God Solution.
Wow.
If you want that. Just ask for it. I'll send it to you.
That's beautiful. So I will put that link in the description box, guys. So if you're on the podcast, I'll put it in the description box. If you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description box. I will put that link in for Neale, and all you got to do is say, I saw this on Julie's show. Please send me a copy. These are beautiful books, and they are enriching on every level, enriching in the soul, in the being, in the emotions, in your relationship with Source, with God, whatever word you want. I know many of you don't like the word God because it brings up all the connotations of religion and restriction and dogma and all of the stuff that Neale was saying there about when he was 9. You know, we don't want that. That's not our God. Our God is love, pure love. And you will get so much out of these books, I promise you. So just ask them. And it's a gift. He's donated them to you free, which is just wonderful.
But I do ask for something. I would like to get a favor in return, if I could.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask people that I send it to, if you agree with what you've read. Of course, if you don't agree with it, then just tear it up, throw it away, delete it from your computer. But if you agree with anything you've read, please pass it on to everyone you know. Just do me a favor and, join what I call the address book movement and send a copy to everybody in your address book. I dare you. Because people say, well, what can I do? What can one person do? But what I suggest, well, send a copy of this book to everybody in your address book. Then people say, oh, I can't do that. Oh my God. What if they disagree? What? So we start worrying about ourselves again. Instead of simply just sending it to everybody in your address book, say, hey, you may agree or you may disagree, but I thought at least you would find this interesting. Give it a read. It's as simple as that. So I will send it to anybody who asks for it, and I'm asking them in return if they would send it to everybody else that they know.
Pay it forward. Let's spread the word. Let's send out that message of the pure love. Now, so let me ask you, what do you think are the biggest problems in the world today?
Alienation. Yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping to communicate a while ago. And what's sad is that most people in positions of power, heads of corporations, chiefs of state, even the leaders of our major religions, if you ask them that question, they probably wouldn't answer it with one word: alienation. They would say, well, it's the ecology or it's the economy or whatever. They would go into political, social, economic problems. And I would say, no. The biggest problem today is not political. The biggest problem today is not economic. The biggest problem today is not ecological or social. The biggest problem in the world today is spiritual. We have alienated ourselves from each other, and yes, even from God. So the biggest problem in the world is alienation, and that's why the God solution suggests a way to solve that problem. Change your mind. By the way, not just change your mind about who and what God is, not just redefine God, but maybe even redefine yourself. Julie, what I've learned over the past 30 years talking to people, since the first book came out, Conversations with God, released around 29 years ago, I've talked to a lot of people. And I've discovered that they simply don't understand. They've never even asked themselves the biggest question of life. Who am I?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, really, who am I? Is this who I am? Is this body? Is this who Neale really is? Or is this who I am? Am I my mind? Or is it possible, just possible, that I'm neither my body nor my mind, that these are just simply tools that I have to do what I came to the land of the physical to do? Is it possible that I'm a spiritual entity having a physical experience? Now, if my true identity is that I'm a spiritual identity, I would have to ask myself, any intelligent person would ask, then what am I doing here? If I'm a spiritual entity, why would I come to this crazy place to live my life? And the answer is found in the Conversations with God books and all of the books that I've written. By the way, there are 41.
I thought there were 39.
I've written two more since I've written two more since that biographical statement was written.
All right. Okay.
But because I just can't shut up. Honestly, to be honest, I just want to make sure that everything that could be said on these subjects is said.
Well, I think there was a little bit of a clue there in the title of Conversations with God that you're a bit chatty.
Yeah, just a little bit.
For those of you watching, if you haven't read Conversations with God, it is incredibly funny as well as enlightening and empowering. God has got a hell of a sense of humor, and the way that Neale writes it, and the same with all of his writings, it's not heavy, it's not hard, it's easy. It's a beautiful, beautiful read.
You'll get your check in the morning.
I'm going to read the bit that your team sent me. So, the God Solution, published in December 2020, proposes an altered and totally non-traditional spiritual approach to ending the seemingly interminable struggles of our species. So it opens with the two questions: if God exists, why is the world always in such a mess? And two, does God play any role in creating, much less fixing, things on earth? And it goes on to then give that hypothesis about it, which you've explained there. And we need to agree that God is not what the churches and religions say it is. It is an energy of pure love. It is connection. It is oneness. And when we can treat each other from a place of God within us, then we solve those problems. So the God Solution is the 39th title. So there's another two that we didn't know about. And it's available in Kindle, audiobook, hardcover, and at Amazon.
And directly from me. Just ask me for it and I'll send it to you at no cost.
Yeah, as you have offered to our beautiful watchers and listening. So I want to ask you more about the true love, because, it's the subtitle is The Power of Pure Love. So what is missing in our understanding of true love?
A willingness to need nothing in return. That's what's missing. Julie, we haven't even learned how to love the person on the pillow next to us in that way, much less the person across the street, much less the person around the world. And so, in fact, we can't even love God that way. We even expect to get something back from God. If I'm going to love God, if I'm going to obey His commandments and do what He wants, and then I expect to have God treat me well and have good things happen to me. So we think that love is a trade deal, Julie. That's what's missing in our understanding of pure love. We think love is a trade deal. Hey, I got some stuff. I promise you, I can even show you my stuff if you want me to. Yeah. And you have some things that I want, compassion, caring, understanding, partnership, friendship, all those things so how about if I give you all the things I have to offer in life, and you give me all the things you have to offer in life, and we can have a trade deal, like nations have trade deals with each other. And on Valentine's Day, I can send you the perfect Valentine's Day card. My darling, my beloved, my sweetheart, I trade you very much. And I will never stop trading you. I will trade you until the end of time. But if you stop trading me, the deal is off.
Yeah, deal's off. Yeah.
And that's what we don't understand about pure love. Because pure love wants, needs, and even hopes for nothing in return. Now, people sometimes say to me, Neale, come on, I have some basic needs in life. I mean, why have a partnership if I don't have any companionship? Why have a marriage if I don't have certain benefits from the marriage? What's the point of the whole thing? To say nothing about what's the point of my relationship with God? And I have to explain, when you share the grandest part of who you are, the part of you that needs nothing. By the way, that's why I asked the question earlier, who are you? If you think that you are a spiritual being and not this body and not this mind, it will suddenly become clear to you that you need nothing in return from anyone. in order to be totally joyful, totally happy, and a total expression of divinity itself. Because you are, in fact, an expression of divinity. So it's really quite simple to step into that role. But it does require you to embrace the notion of who you really are. Who am I and what am I doing here on the earth? That becomes the question that we answer. So that's what's missing in our understanding of love. We think that love is a trade deal. But how can I love someone from whom I get nothing in return? Oh, because you're not loving them to get something in return. You're loving them because they're lovable. If I say I love you in hopes of getting something in return, then I'm simply loving me and using you as an example, as a process, as a way to get what I want, as a way for me to feel love. So I played that game in my earlier years in life, in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, even in my early 50s. That's how I played the game.
You mean you were not perfect?
Well, these days. But when I was a young guy, I was playing that way.
I watched your movie. I watched the movie of your life and I loved it, by the way. I had no idea all these years that you were homeless before all of, your fame and everything came. But wow, just wow. But yes, I watched some of the antics and the predatory male behavior that you were doing back then. Typical. You're not.
By the way, not just male behavior, females, you'll be surprised to know, behave that way often as well.
Yes.
What can I get from you? And then I'll see if I want to trade with you what I have to give to you. So it's not just a male behavior, but I was behaving like a typical male in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and even in my early 50s. And that's why I had one marriage after the other that didn't work out, that just wouldn't hang together and hold together. I didn't know what love was all about. So I've now decided to love other people, beginning with the person on the pillow next to me. My wife's that I've now been with for God love it, 60 glorious years. And for me, that's a record, by the way. To be married to the same person for 16 years. Oh my God.
Finally got it right.
I finally got at least close to right. We like all people who live together 24/7, we have moments, when things aren't as sweet as we'd like them to be. But I'm going to say 90% of the time, we've got it right because we both share the same philosophy, the same understandings, the same awareness, and when we decide to treat others the way we would like to be treated, and when we decide to seek the experience of divinity flowing, this is a daring thing to say, but I'm going to say it, flowing through us, as us. If I dare to try to behave as I believe divinity would behave, in my every interaction with you, it's going to change dramatically my relationship with you and with every other person on the planet. So that's my effort with my beloved spouse. But, the point I wanted to make about that was when we decide to seek that aspect of ourselves, which I call the kingdom of heaven, everything else that I thought I should be seeking in life falls in on me automatically. And to get back to a point we were making a moment ago, when I decide to be the source in the life of another, of that which I have to provide them with pure love. And by the way, when I decide to be the source in the life of another of everything I want, if I want more companionship, be the source of more companionship in the life of another. If I want more abundance, be the source of more abundance in the life of another. If I want more understanding, be the source of more understanding in the life of another. If I want more sex, be this. Well, anyway, you get the point. So whatever I want more of, be the source of it in the life of another.
This is what I teach as well, but I would use the word mirror, but I actually put, be the mirror, be what you want to see. But I often say life is the life that you're looking at is the mirror back to you of who you are with you and how you are with you. And if you want to change the mirror, you have to change the source within you. But I love that, be the source. I think, that needs to be our mantra. Comment that below if you're watching on YouTube. I am the source. Just be the source. And
someone else said it really eloquently. There was a guy who was walking around on this planet a few years ago who actually put it very eloquently.
It's going to be a Jesus quote coming. I can feel it coming on.
Oh, he said, "Never quote me again or I'll send you to hell." Oh, no. That's not what he said. I'm sorry. He said, you preempted me. He said, "Do unto others as you would have it done unto you." And he also said this, interestingly enough. He said, "Don't go around asking, what are we to eat? What are we to drink? Wherewithal would we clothe ourselves? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you."
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And people say, "Oh, he's a Neale Donald Walsch is a New Age author." This is not New Age stuff. This is stuff we were told thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And not just by Jesus, by Buddha and Muhammad, bless his holy name, by Moses, and by all the great teachers, by Catherine of Genoa, by Julian of Norwich, by Mother Teresa. We've been taught this by the spiritual masters across human history, male and female. It's not a question of, is God talking to us? The question is, who's listening?
Yeah. I remember when you're talking about pure love, it makes me think back. I think it was Conversation with God, Book 2, where you put in recommended wedding vows. And I actually used them on my next wedding. It didn't work out long term, but it was nice in the moment. But I loved those, not really vows, because we didn't call them vows. I can't remember what you called them, but the agreement of that we're free, that as long as the love is there, it flows and it works. When the love goes, and if you want to go, I want to go, we're not owning each other. We are two individuals who choose to be together. And that, when we're talking about the pure love and the concept of loving the person next to you or the person across the street, that principle was there in Conversations with God, wasn't it? It was saying that love is free. You can't own it. It needs to be unconditional and pure, and to allow to coexist within I am me and you are you, and I don't seek to change you. If there's something in you I don't like, I look at what it is in me that is triggering me, or is that perhaps I need to take ownership of within myself.
Or even, why do I need to like it? If there's something in you that I don't like, interesting question. Why do I need to like it? Can I get through my life and continue loving you, by the way, even if I don't particularly like this thing that you do, or this thing that you often say, or this behavior that you exhibit? Why do I need to like it? What if unconditional love? See, if God liked us or loved us that way, we'd all be in serious trouble. But God does not love us that way. There's nothing that we can do that would stop God from loving us. Read that, Nothing. I was told something, and I know this is another controversial thing for me to say, but I've got to say it. I was told Hitler went to heaven. And I stopped in that conversation. I said, come on, don't tell me that. That's a terrible thing to say. What do you mean? Hitler went to heaven? How was that possible? And I was told, Neale, there's no other place to go. I got that you think there's a place called hell, but hell does not exist. Hitler went to heaven because there's no other place to go. And the prodigal son is welcomed home to try again, to understand and to express what the soul really is. No one, by the way, acts in a way that they don't feel internally is correct. If their mind is warped, or if they have a serious psychological problem, or they have a philosophical difference of opinion, whatever, but nobody acts in a way. Nobody does anything inappropriate given their model of the world. That's straight out of Conversations with God. Nobody does anything inappropriate given their model of the world. This explains Hitler. This explains many other individuals throughout human history, and even some individuals who happen to be living on the planet today.
Yeah.
So, but I got to share this. See, God has made it very clear to me, and I say this to people. Sometimes I'm invited to actually speak in a church. Believe it or not, there are some churches that actually have the courage to invite me to give a small talk. And I go to that church, and the first thing I say to the congregation is, God will never forgive you. Please be real clear that God will never forgive you for anything.
Because there's nothing to forgive.
And the place goes crazy. I mean, eyes cross in the first row. Some people actually get up and walk out. I've had people walk out of my lecture. But before they get to the back door, I say, wait, can you give me like 10 seconds at least to explain myself? All right. Explain yourself. It's the same guy. He goes to all of my lectures. I say, because nothing that little old you could do, think, say, or behave in a way could possibly hurt, injure, damage, or upset, frustrate, or anger God in any way. For the simple reason that God is God and therefore needs nothing from you. Not your worship, not your understanding, least of all your obedience. Well, then what's the point of having a God? That's the question I asked, by the way, in the book. Well, then what's the point of having a God? And why is the world such a mess if there really is a God? And the answer is no, God does not need anything from you, least of all your worship or your obedience. But what God desires is for you to experience who you really are, which is why God has given you and placed within every sentient being in the cosmos the power to create individually and collectively your own reality. You have the power to create, which is the power that God has. And so God placed the power that she has within him, within each of you as well. So that we actually have the opportunity and the ability to create our own reality. And so that's why God doesn't fix things. If God's job was just to fix all the problems on earth, then we become nothing more than minions, subjects in the kingdom. Do as I say, and everything will be okay. But God did not intend for us to be minions. God intended for us to be creators, glorious, extraordinary entities.
Masters of our own reality.
Expressing divinity itself.
I can hear kind of, the comments are going to come in, saying, he sounds just like Julie. And I want to kind of say, where do you think I got it from? I got it from this man. And this is what I've been teaching for all these years. But this is the experts.
I'm not. I need to explain one thing real fast. I don't consider myself to be the expert of anything and the master of nothing. I do not have any wisdom or clarity deep within me. None whatsoever. I'm the same as every other person with the same faults, the same foibles. I promise you, if you don't believe me, ask my wife. She'll be glad to tell you. And anyone who knows me well will tell you the same thing. But have I developed the ability to repeat what I was given to share? Have I developed at least that ability? Did I take good dictation? I was once a newspaper reporter. I don't know whether people know that, but I was once in the newspaper business, and I was a reporter. It was my job to interview people, to ask questions, and to make darn sure I got the answers correct. So I wrote them down quickly. I had my own little shorthand. I did the same thing with God. I said, okay, God, help me out here. I don't understand what's going on. And I asked God a whole series of questions, and she gave me the most extraordinary answers I ever heard in my life. So just so people know, I'm not standing here imagining myself to be the source of wisdom and clarity. Thank goodness Julie listened to me. But I
Let
would
me
say
let me
I'm so
clarify
happy.
then. What I meant was that the information that you brought through, which I resonate, that does genuinely come from God. I've been channeling beings of light for a long time, and I've once had a connection and an experience directly with God, which was mind-blowing. And I've had many conversations with Jesus. And when I read your book, for me, every word resonated. This is directly from source. This is from God. This is God's word. And it absolutely resonated on every single atom of my being. So when I say you're the expert, I mean God's the expert.
But let me say this as well, so people don't misunderstand that aspect of me either. I don't think that I am the one who hears from God. I had conversations with God. Wouldn't it be nice if you could too? Folks, if you pick up the book and read it, in the first chapter, in the first passages of chapter 1, we are all told that God talks to everyone all the time. The question is not to whom is God talking. The question is, as I said a moment ago, who is listening? So be very clear that God is communicating with all of us all the time. We're simply calling it something else because we don't want to be ridiculed or made fun of. So we call it intuition, or an epiphany, or a sudden insight, or a brilliant idea that struck me while I was in the shower, or whatever we can get away with. But it's all the same thing. God is talking to you all the time, including the part of you that's hearing God say right now, listen carefully. You didn't bring yourself to this program by accident. You came to this program not by coincidence. Your soul led you here. Listen carefully. If this feels like truth to you, embrace it. If it doesn't, then throw it away. I tell people, you know what? My books may be all wrong, but I imagine myself to have heard from God could be inaccurate. You must, as God says in the book, by the way,
discern
you must be your own authority in all spiritual matters. If you read information in these books that you don't agree with, toss the book out. By the way, toss out all the books that purport to tell you the truth about God, unless they ring true in your heart. Or as my friend Bill used to say, "Could thine own self be true?" But he was also fond of saying, I love Bill, he was just a smart guy. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. To be or not to be, that is the question.
Thyself be true. Wow. That's just beautiful. One question I have for you. You said, and I can't remember which book this was, collective consciousness can be altered when the alteration of individual consciousnesses reaches critical mass. When sufficient individual energies are lifted, the entire mass is elevated to a new level. Do you think we are there yet?
No, of course we're not there yet. But do I think we're on the way and getting closer than we've been in a long time? Yes, I do. Thanks to inventions and wonderful advances such as this, the internet, and the technologies, these kinds of technologies that put the world right into our hand. And what we're doing right now, talking across the miles, was not possible even 20 years ago. We simply didn't have this ability. Now we have the ability to share eternal truths with thousands of people instantaneously. So when I talk about the address book movement, for instance, when I tell people, I'll send you a copy of the God Solution at no cost, I'll upload it to your computer tomorrow. But I hope that you will send it to everybody in your address book. That's something we couldn't have done 30 years ago. When I was, a younger man in my 50s, I couldn't have dreamt of being able to do something that we can now do today. So do I think we're on our way to reaching critical mass? Yes. And by the way, critical mass, for people who aren't aware of it, it's not like one more than half. It's not 51%. It's not even 30%. It's not even 20%. It's not even 10%. They're told by those who know about such things that critical mass is somewhere between 3.5 and 5% of the whole.
Wow, I did not know that.
That's critical mass. And when we reach 5% or so of the whole, the first domino falls, and the rest of the dominoes follow. And if you don't believe it, by the way, watch how fast a catchphrase, a young person, the young people today, they have catchphrases. Watch how fast a catchphrase can catch on around the world virtually in 2 weeks, because 5% of the people heard about it first. Watch the fashion world. Watch how fast a fashion can catch on virtually overnight.
I understand now. So when 5% people get it, they are sharing it and spreading it, and it becomes like ripples in the pond, and it just goes out.
So we are close to critical mass. We're moving toward that more rapidly. All we need are committed, if I could put it this way, committed players in the game. If you have a thought about our reason for being here, who we are, and the purpose of life, and who and what God is, that you feel is a positive thought that could help change people's lives and change the world, for goodness sake, and I mean literally for the sake of goodness, share it with everyone whose life you touch. Because, by the way, that's the single most important message in conversations with God. You're supposed to ask me, Neale, what is the single most important message of the 3,000 pages of the Conversations with God material?
What is the single most important message from Conversations with God series? From the 3,000 pages, what is the single most important message?
I had fallen to my knees, Julie, all kidding aside now. Thanks for asking that question, because I had fallen to my knees at a particular point in my life. Everything was not working. My relationship with my significant other had broken down. I had moved out of my house. It was an amicable separation. We weren't, fighting terribly, but we agreed it just wasn't working. And I didn't want that to happen. So I was feeling terrible. I found a little top apartment, on the top of somebody's garage, and for a little bachelor pad that I could hang out in for a while. But then 5 days later, I lost my job. My corporation was downsizing, and I was the last person in, the most recent hire. I'd been there only a year and a half. I was the most recent hire. I was the first one to be let go. Now I'm out of a relationship and out of work in the same 5-day period. But now 4 days later, I'm driving to an appointment for an interview for a new job that I felt certain I was going to be qualified for. They're going to hire me on the spot. But a man turned in front of me, made a left turn in front of me as I was driving down the road. He misjudged the distance and the speed of my car. I was tootling along, by the way. I rarely drive more than 25 miles an hour. I wasn't racing down the highway. I was piddling along at 25 miles an hour, but he crashed right into me, totaled my car, and almost totaled me.
Yeah, your neck was in a brace for a year, 2 years, something like that?
He broke my neck.
Wow.
And by the way, it wasn't a hairline fracture. It was a 3/4 inch avulsion fracture of the 7th cervical vertebrae posteriorly. That happens to be a break large enough to put a pencil through. And when I woke up after they did the repair work, the doctor looked at me and he said, "You do realize that when a person has that kind of a break in their neck, 95% of the time, they die. And the other 5% absolutely winds up being paralyzed from the neck down. You have suffered neither outcome." And the surgeon looked at me in the face and he said, "What do you intend to do with the rest of your life? Because you've been given an incredible gift." And if that doesn't make you stop and think, this guy wasn't a minister or a rabbi or, an imam. He was a surgeon in a hospital. but he was very clear that he was facing, a miracle in his own practice. But I wound up getting thrown out of my little rooftop apartment because I couldn't pay the rent. So the guy had to kick me out. He didn't want to, but he said, "Hey, I can't. I got to ask you to leave." Now I'm living on the sidewalk, walking the streets for a year of my life, not for a couple of bad weeks or a couple of rough months, but for a solid year, because I'm wearing this Philadelphia collar. As you said, it's a plastic collar that you wear when your neck is broken, and there's nothing holding your head up. The doctor said, "Neale, imagine a basketball being held on the head of a pin. That's what's going on with you. Do not take this collar off for any reason. You will shower in it. You will sleep in it. You will not take it off for any reason at all." I had to wear it for over a year and a half. And finally, and no one was hiring me. I was applying for jobs right and left. And finally, some prospective employer said to me, "Neale, I got to be honest with you. Has no one told you yet? No one is going to hire you with that thing around your neck. You're a walking insurance claim. You make one wrong move, we're paying your medical bills for the next 2 years. When you're free of this thing, come and see us." So I'm out of work. I'm living on the sidewalk, sleeping on the concrete, going up to people and asking for a couple of dimes or a quarter or a $50. Because if I can, one guy said to me, "What's a $50 going to do?" I said, "You know what? If I got a $50 for everybody I asked today, I could buy a hamburger and some French fries from McDonald's tonight. Please, sir, whatever pocket change you've got."
A hell of a lesson in humility, isn't it?
You want to know what a lesson in humility is? Imagine what it is to go an entire day and have nowhere to go to the bathroom. It's one thing if you have to take a little, excuse my language, but men say take a little leak. It's one thing if you have to just take a leak. Excuse me, if you're doing number 2, where does that happen? You have nowhere to go. You got to sneak into a restaurant and hope that they won't stop you. And of course, they see you, they can smell you. You haven't had a shower in 6 months. Your hair is down to the middle of your back. You're wearing the same shirt you wore for the past 2 weeks because you only own 2 shirts. And the manager walks up to you and says, no, out of here. No. I said, please, sir, please. I just need to use the bathroom. I swear to God, I'll be in and out. All right. You got to beg someone to use the toilet? Talk about learning humility. So, by the way, if I could add a little piece of information to that, when you are walking down the street, if you pass anybody with their hand out, just give them something. If it's a single dollar bill, don't walk by them and make a judgment. He's just going to use it. He's just going to use it to buy drugs. He's just going to buy out. Don't make a judgment. You don't know. Give him the dollar you got in your pocket. In fact, always have some folding money with you. Make sure, I reach into my pocket. I always make sure I've got folding money. Always. Because I never know who I'm going to run into, or as I'm driving off the exit ramp on a freeway, and there's a guy standing there with a cardboard sign, "Anything helps." For God's sake, roll the window down and give him a 5. Make his day. My little request from somebody who's been there.
I totally support it. Totally. I mean, before I was working as I am now for the last 22 years, I was a homeless manager. That was my job, helping homeless people. So it's close to my heart as well. And we should absolutely, well, I don't like to say woulda, shoulda, couldas. Your heart will guide you to be kind and generous and compassionate and loving with all fellow human beings.
Because that's who you are. And when you step into the full demonstration of who you really are, you will touch lives in a way that they will never forget. And by the way, neither will you. I could, of course, be wrong about all of this. I could be wrong about everything I've been sharing with you here today. But I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Well, Neale, you have given me an hour of your time, which we can share with whoever is watching and listening with this. And I truly appreciate it. and value it. And I want to say thank you so very much, not just for this hour that you've given us, but for the 41 books that you have shared your love, your knowledge, your insight, your inspiration, your conversations with God in every aspect, including the God solution and the power of pure love. Final words for us, Neale?
I asked God, what is the most important message? And she said, sweetheart, it's really very simple. You think your life is about you. And your life has nothing to do with you. I didn't put you down there because I thought you weren't needed. I put you in a place where I thought you were needed. So here's the most important message, Neale. Your life is not about you. It's about everyone whose life you touch and the way in which you touch it.
Beautiful words to live a good life by. I want to thank you, Neale, for everything you've shared with humanity. And we are all sending you so much love and appreciation and thanks.
Thank you, my friend. It was lovely to be here with you. And folks, I'll be with Julie every day for the next year. So you'll have to suffer through this. Because she's going to have me as a repeat guest.
I would be delighted. I would be honored.
Talk myself into that.
Yeah, not every day. I don't think you've got the time for that. But we will, with your permission, have you back on again.
Thank you. That would be lovely. And thank you for this opportunity. We're having some fun together. So I hope you get my sense of humor, but I do appreciate truly the opportunity to share with you and with your audience.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. Have a blessed, amazing week. And I will be back next week. You take care. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this podcast and found it useful, please subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and more, where you can leave up to a 5-star review. If you want to support my work or want to know more, please go to my website, juliepooleonline.com, where you will find details of my new book, From Hoping to Having, available on Amazon worldwide, and more about my work, products, and services. The link is